There are moments that slice your life cleanly into before and after. This was mine, and it started with a gift so small, it exposed everything. My name is Lena Hart. I'm 27 years old, and I work as a junior architectural drafter in Boise, Idaho. I've always believed families are messy, but fair. I was wrong. Painfully wrong. Christmas Eve. Not morning. Night. The kind of night where expectations sit heavy in your chest and old traditions pretend nothing has changed. I was sitting on the edge of my childhood couch, knees pulled tight, listening to the low hum of my parents' new space heater clicking on and off. The house smelled like cinnamon candles and nostalgia. My parents loved nostalgia. They used it like a shield. Then my older sister Marissa, 34, senior marketing director, perfect teeth, perfect life, clapped her hands once like a magician about to reveal a trick. Okay, my next, she laughed. Dad stood up first. That's how I knew. He only stood for moments he wanted remembered. He handed her a long black box. Not wrapped. Deliberate. Inside were keys. Not just keys. A sleek key fob with a silver emblem that made Mom gasp like she was watching a proposal. Outside, parked crookedly in the driveway, sat a midnight blue luxury SUV, still wearing a ridiculous gold bow. The bow was enormous. Cartoonish. Almost insulting. Marissa screamed. Literally screamed. She ran outside barefoot, shrieking her way through the snow, crying, laughing, filming herself for Instagram before she even touched the door handle. My parents watched her like proud investors admiring a return. Then Mom turned to me. Her smile softened. Not warm. Soft like pity. Oh, honey, she said, handing me a small paper bag. Not a box. A bag. It had cartoon clouds on it. From a dollar store. Inside was a clear coin pouch. Plastic. Crinkled. The zipper already broken on one side. I opened it slowly, because suddenly my hands didn't feel like mine. Inside were 3 bills. 2 fives. 1 single. $11. Dad chuckled. This is to help you get started, he said. Mom nodded. You're so independent. We didn't think you'd want anything big. I didn't say anything, because the silence was louder. Marissa came back inside, keys jingling, cheeks red from the cold and attention. She glanced at my lap, at the pouch, and smirked. Well, she said, not everyone needs expensive things. That's when something shifted. Not anger. Clarity. Hold on, before we get into the real stuff, I want to know, what are you doing right now while hearing my voice? Are you lying in bed? Driving? Avoiding someone you don't want to text back? Tell me in the comments. I read them. Always. Because here's the thing. This wasn't about money. It never was. This was about patterns. Marissa got bailed out when she maxed out credit cards in college. Marissa got her rent covered just this once for 4 years straight. Marissa got praised for breathing. I got lectures. Budget spreadsheets. Character building. That night, after the laughter died down and the wrapping paper was stuffed into trash bags, I excused myself early. Said I had work in the morning. Mom hugged me tighter than usual. Like she knew. Back in my old bedroom, I sat on the floor and stared at my phone. $11 on the desk. A luxury SUV glowing outside the window. At 2:17 a.m., I made a decision that would permanently fracture my family. I booked a one-way ticket. I packed only what fit in my backpack, and I blocked 3 numbers without hesitation. But before I left, I did one thing that made sure they'd never forget me, and they wouldn't realize it until it was far too late. I didn't slam the door when I left. I smiled, and that's what made it dangerous. At 2:24 a.m., the house was silent in that eerie, suspended way, like it was holding its breath. The kind of quiet that usually meant safety, familiarity. But that night, it felt like permission. I zipped my backpack slowly. Laptop. Passport. 1 change of clothes. And the envelope. The envelope was the part no one knew about. I'd found it months earlier while helping Mom organize paperwork. That was her code for I don't understand this, but I don't want to admit it. Inside were copies of documents she never meant for me to see. loan statements, property paperwork, and a name I didn't recognize at first. Marissa Hartwell. Not Hart. Hartwell. Her married name. But here's the thing. Marissa wasn't married yet. Her wedding wasn't for another 6 months. And yet the SUV loan, the down payment on her condo, even the card Dad swiped to surprise her, all under my parents' names. Co-signed. Second mortgaged. Maxed. They didn't buy her a car. They destroyed their retirement for her. And they handed me $11 because they couldn't afford guilt anymore. That realization didn't make me cry. It made me calm. I slid the envelope into my bag and stepped into the hallway. The floorboard near the bathroom creaked, same one it always had. I paused, heart racing, waiting for someone to stir. Nothing. Outside, the cold hit my face like a slap. The SUV sat there, pristine and smug under the porch light. I walked past it without looking. Because I wasn't jealous. I was calculating. At the airport, I watched the sun start to rise behind the mountains as my phone buzzed for the first time since I blocked them. A notification. Not a call. A text from Marissa, sent before the block went through. Hey. I know tonight was weird. Don't be dramatic. I laughed out loud. Not bitter. Not sad. Amused. By the time my flight landed in Phoenix, my new city, my phone was blissfully quiet. No guilt-tripping voicemails. No frantic apologies. Just space. But families don't stay quiet when you disappear. 3 days later, I unblocked Mom's number. Just long enough to check. 17 missed calls. 9 voicemails. The last one was different. Her voice wasn't sweet. It wasn't calm. It was scared. Lena, she whispered, like someone might overhear. Your father and we need to talk. Please call us back. Something's wrong. I didn't call. Instead, I did something else. I forwarded the envelope's contents to my email. Every document. Every signature. Every risk they took for Marissa without telling her. Then I scheduled an email. Not to my parents. To Marissa's fiancé. See, he worked in finance. Risk assessment. Debt analysis. And he had no idea the woman he was about to marry came with a financial time bomb wrapped in a gold bow. I didn't send it yet. Revenge isn't about speed. It's about timing. That night, I checked my social media for the first time since leaving. Marissa had posted a photo with the SUV. Captioned, "Hard work pays off, blue heart grateful for parents who believe in me." The comments were full of praise. Goals. Lucky. Deserved. I stared at the screen, thumb hovering. Then I closed the app, because if I posted anything now, they'd see it coming. And I needed them relaxed, comfortable, unaware. 2 weeks passed. Then the call came. Not from Mom. Not from Dad. From a number I didn't recognize. Is this Lena Hart? A man asked. Yes. This is Evan, Marissa's fiancé. My stomach flipped, but my voice stayed steady. Yes, I said. What's going on? There was a pause. Then he said something that made me sit down. I found an email scheduled from you. It just came through. I closed my eyes. The clock on my wall read 2:17 a.m., the same time I'd left. And as he started explaining what he'd just learned about my parents, Marissa, and the SUV, I realized this wasn't just a family rift anymore. It was about to become a public collapse. The lie didn't explode. It leaked. And leaks destroy things slowly, painfully. Evan's voice was too calm for the words he was saying. That's how I knew the damage was already done. I didn't mean to snoop, he said, breath shaky. But when I saw the attachments, the loan agreements, Lena, this doesn't make sense. I leaned back against my kitchen counter in Phoenix, the desert heat still clinging to the walls, even at night. My heart was steady, cold even. It makes perfect sense, I replied. You just weren't supposed to see it yet. Silence. Then, my name isn't on any of this, he said. But Marissa told me the SUV was a gift. Paid off. She said your parents were comfortable. I let a beat pass. Revenge breathes and pauses. They're not, I said gently. They refinanced the house. Twice. That car? It's leased under my dad's credit. Missed 2 payments, it's gone. Missed 3, Everything goes. Another pause. Longer this time. She told me she earned it, he whispered. That's when it hit him. Not the debt. Not the risk. The betrayal. By morning, the first crack appeared. Marissa didn't call me. She posted a vague Instagram story. Black background. White text. Crazy how people will try to ruin your happiness when they can't stand seeing you succeed. No names. But everyone knew. My phone buzzed nonstop after that. Cousins. Old friends. Even an aunt I hadn't spoken to in years. Did you really leave over a gift? Why are you being so petty? Your parents are heartbroken. I answered none of them, because the real implosion hadn't happened yet. 2 days later, Mom showed up at my apartment. No warning. No call. I opened the door and barely recognized her. Her hair was unbrushed. Her eyes were rimmed red like she hadn't slept in weeks. She stepped inside and looked around like she expected to find proof that I was still a child. You sent those documents, she said. Not a question. I shared the truth, I replied. She dropped into a chair like her knees gave out. You had no right. I laughed once. Short. Sharp. No right, I echoed. You had no right to lie to him, or to yourselves. She rubbed her temples. Marissa is inconsolable. Evan postponed the wedding. Your father's blood pressure is not my responsibility. I cut in. Her head snapped up. Shocked. I'd never interrupted her before. Do you know, I continued, how many times I asked for help? Not money. Just support. Just acknowledgement. She opened her mouth. Closed it. Because she knew. They said you'd understand, she whispered. That you're strong. I stepped closer. Lowered my voice. Strong doesn't mean silent. That night, the second crack split open. Evan moved out. Didn't take furniture. Didn't take the dog. Just his name off the joint account. Marissa called me for the first time at 2:11 a.m. I let it ring. Then she left a voicemail. You're jealous, she spat. You've always been jealous. You couldn't stand that I finally had something you didn't. I played it twice. Not because it hurt, but because it proved something. She still thought this was about the car. The next morning, Dad emailed me from his work address. Subject line, please. Inside was a single sentence. We are going to lose the house. I stared at the screen, hands trembling, not from fear, from choice. Because here's the part they never expected. I could help them. I had savings. Years of being responsible. Years of sacrificing. Enough for a down payment. Enough to stabilize things. And they knew it, which meant the final decision wasn't about revenge. It was about power. That afternoon, Marissa went live on social media. Tears. Mascara streaks. Carefully angled vulnerability. My own sister is trying to destroy my life, she sobbed. All because she couldn't be happy for me. The comments flooded in. Support. Rage. Sympathy. I watched quietly. Then I posted something of my own. Not accusations. Not documents. Just a photo. An old one. Me at 16, working a grocery store register. Caption. Some of us were taught independence. Some of us were funded illusions. Within minutes, the comments turned. People started asking questions. And when people ask questions, they find answers. By midnight, someone leaked the loan records. Not me. Someone else. And when that happened, I knew the final stage had begun. Because the internet doesn't forget. And families don't survive public truths. The internet didn't choose sides. It chose receipts. By morning, Marissa's name was trending locally. Not viral famous. Worse. Explain yourself to everyone you know famous. Screenshots floated everywhere. Loan documents. Timelines. Side-by-side comparisons of her posts bragging about self-made success, next to hard numbers showing my parents drowning in debt. The narrative shifted fast, not from love to hate, from admiration to suspicion. And suspicion is lethal. Marissa deleted her live video, then her entire account. Too late. The screenshots had already escaped into group chats and forums where context goes to die. My phone rang again. Dad this time. I answered. Lena, he said, voice raw, stripped of authority. You need to tell them it's not like that. I leaned against the window, watching the sun bleach the desert sky. Tell who? Everyone, he snapped. Your mother can't leave the house. People are calling her selfish. Ungrateful. I almost laughed. Almost. Dad, I said slowly, did you call Marissa ungrateful when she accepted the car? Silence. That was the answer. An hour later, Evan called again. Not panicked. Focused. I'm pulling out completely, he said. But I need to know something. Did you plan this? I didn't lie. I planned my exit, I said. What happened after was inevitable. He exhaled. You know this is going to ruin her career. I looked at my reflection in the glass. Older than I'd felt a month ago. She built it on a story, I replied. Stories collapse when the truth shows up. That afternoon, Mom showed up again. This time with Dad. They stood side by side like a united front that had never actually existed. We raised you better than this, Dad said, jaw tight. I opened the door wider. You raised me to be honest. Mom burst into tears. Do you hate us? She asked. The question hung heavy. No, I said. I finally see you. And that was worse. Because hate fades. Seeing doesn't. They left without another word. That night, Marissa broke her silence. A long post. Notes app screenshot. Carefully worded accountability, without apology. Family matters are complex. I never asked for anyone to sacrifice for me. I was misled. Misled. By who? Not herself, apparently. But the internet wasn't buying it anymore. Someone dug deeper. Found old Venmo screenshots. Messages where she bragged about Dad handling it. The illusion cracked wide open. And then the unexpected happened. My company's CEO emailed me. Subject, saw this. Are you okay? I braced myself. Instead, he wrote, if you need time or flexibility, you have it. Also, your composure online? Impressive. That's when it hit me. Revenge doesn't always look like destruction. Sometimes it looks like clarity rewarding the right person. 2 days later, Dad called again. This time, defeated. The bank's calling the loan, he said quietly. They want partial repayment. I waited. We were wondering, he continued, voice barely above a whisper, if you could help us. Just enough to stabilize things. There it was. The ask. The moment everything had been leading toward. Years of restraint. Years of being the good one. Years of being overlooked. I closed my eyes. I can help, I said. Relief flooded his voice. Thank you, sweetheart. I knew you wouldn't. But I won't. I finished. The silence on the other end was absolute. You taught me consequences. I continued calmly. I'm just finally applying the lesson. He didn't yell. He didn't beg. He just hung up. The next morning, I got a text from Marissa. One sentence. You've made your point. Are you happy now? I stared at it, then typed back. No. I'm free. And for the first time since Christmas night, that was true. But freedom has a cost. And I was about to learn what mine would be. Because when money collapses and reputations follow, families don't just fracture. They choose sides. And I was about to find out who, if anyone, still stood with me. Freedom felt like victory. But victory is louder than anyone expects. And it echoes back into the places you thought were safe. The days after my final text to Marissa were strange. No calls. No visits. No guilt-laden emails from my parents. Just silence. I settled into a rhythm in Phoenix. Work, friends, the desert skyline at sunset. A life rebuilt from scratch. And yet, the shadow of that night, that decision, lingered like smoke in a closed room. I knew they were watching. My phone buzzed one evening, unknown number. I answered cautiously. Lena? The voice trembled, almost breaking. It's your mother. I hesitated. My fingers hovered over the screen. Then I said, go ahead. She choked back a sob. It's Marissa. She lost her job. Her voice cracked entirely. She's asking for help. We don't know what to do. I swallowed. The urge to rush back, to fix everything, clawed at me, but I held my ground. Mom, I said evenly, this is what happens when truth finally shows up. Do you want to shield her or teach her responsibility? There was silence, the kind of silence that fills rooms with tension. She's scared, Mom whispered. I nodded silently, even though she couldn't see me. Good, I said finally. Let her be scared. Let her feel what she caused. I hung up, and then the realization struck. The game had shifted. I wasn't playing against them anymore. I was watching them play themselves. A week later, Evan reached out. I need your advice, he said, voice tight. Marissa wants to reconcile, but she doesn't understand why I left. I don't know if I should. I smiled faintly. Let her feel it. She has to make the choice herself. Otherwise, it's just another illusion. He sighed. You're terrifying, you know that? Terrifying is just clarity, I replied. And then the turning point. A Saturday evening, an anonymous package arrived at my apartment. Inside, a note. Short. Deliberate. Meet us at the cabin. Midnight. Come alone. Or don't come at all. No signature. No return address. I felt the old thrill of danger I hadn't experienced since high school. Curiosity and fear twisted together in my gut. I packed lightly. Phone fully charged. Laptop and bag. Wallet, keys. And the coin purse. Old habits die hard. The drive to the cabin was dark. Desert stretches endless and silent. Only my headlights and the hum of tires on asphalt. When I arrived, the cabin was quiet. Too quiet. The kind of quiet that feels staged. I stepped inside and froze. Marissa, sitting at the center of the room, head in her hands, eyes red. Next to her, Mom and Dad, looking defeated. All of them had realized the truth too late. Why? She whispered when she saw me. I let her question hang. Not a word. Mom stepped forward. Lena, we didn't know. We thought we were helping her. We didn't see how unfair it was to you. I shook my head slowly. You didn't help her. You just delayed reality. Then I turned to Marissa. And you need to learn what it means to be accountable. You don't get to erase consequences with tears and hashtags. She flinched. I could almost see the layers peeling back. The arrogance, the entitlement, the lies she told herself to feel worthy. Lena, Dad said, his voice breaking, we just want our family back. I let that sentence linger in the air. Families, I said softly, aren't restored with apologies. They're rebuilt with actions. You will rebuild trust, not with gifts, but with honesty. The clock ticked toward 2 a.m., the same hour everything began. It was symbolic, intentional. I walked to the door, leaving them in silence. Before stepping outside, I looked back. I'm not closing the door. I'm leaving it open for truth. The snow crunched beneath my boots as I drove away, headlights fading into the dark. And that's when I realized revenge isn't just about the initial act. It's about timing, patience, and letting reality do the work. Because when they finally understood what happened, it would hurt far more than any dramatic exit, any viral post, or any social media clapback. And this was just the beginning. They thought I'd left them broken. But the truth? I'd handed them the mirror. 2 weeks after the cabin night, life settled into a tense rhythm. Phoenix felt warmer than Boise, but the desert sun couldn't thaw the cold reality that had spread through my family. Marissa was no longer posting online. Her reputation had cratered, and the professional network she once flaunted now whispered. Colleagues asked questions she couldn't answer. Clients hesitated. Every success she'd broadcasted now had a shadow attached to me. But my life? It was untouched. I had the freedom I craved, the career momentum I'd worked for, uninterrupted. And with that freedom came power. I got the email one morning, subject line, "It's time." It was from a private investigator, not one I'd hired, at least not yet. Curiosity flicked in my chest as I opened the attachment. Photos. receipts, bank transfers. Every instance where Marissa had relied on my parents' finances instead of her own work. The investigator included a note. They're calling me to verify everything. You might want to control the narrative. I smiled. Control. Yes. That was the game. By evening, I drafted a carefully constructed email. Not accusatory. Not mean. Just facts. Clear. Undeniable facts that highlighted the truth without editorializing. I sent it to Marissa's professional network. Her managers, her agency, her financial contacts. Nothing private. Only verified information. Within hours, the fallout began. Calls from shocked colleagues, concerned clients, and yes, Evan. Lena, he said, his voice quiet. You could have ruined her life completely. I didn't correct him. I didn't ruin her, I said. I gave her reality. He was silent. Then came the unexpected. Marissa reached out to me, not to apologize, not to argue, but with strategy. I need your help, she said. Her words made my stomach twist. She wasn't asking for forgiveness. She was asking for survival guidance. Why? I asked calm. Because reality isn't waiting for me to figure it out, she admitted. And I've exhausted every other option. I considered it. And then I realized something fundamental. Revenge isn't always about destruction. Sometimes, it's about forcing lessons in the hardest possible way. I gave her conditions. She would acknowledge publicly the truth. She would repay my parents gradually, honestly. She would accept no shortcuts. If she followed the rules, I would guide her discreetly. For the first time in years, I watched Marissa work. Not manipulate, not plead, not perform. She faced consequences. Every phone call she returned was measured, every client meeting transparent. The slow, grinding weight of responsibility was reshaping her. Meanwhile, my parents reached out cautiously. They weren't angry anymore, just tentative, unsure how to interact with me without slipping into the patterns of the past. One evening, Dad called me. Lena, I don't know if we'll ever be the same, but thank you for making us see what we were doing wrong. I didn't soften. Not yet. You're welcome, I said. Now, the work isn't over. You need to keep seeing it. Mom called a few minutes later. We're proud but afraid. Afraid you'll resent us forever. I laughed lightly. Resentment fades. Lessons last. The week I turned 30, I received a final message from Marissa. I don't like you right now, but I understand you. Thank you for forcing me to be honest. I saved it. Not for proof. Not for satisfaction. But as a bookmark in the story of transformation I had set in motion. Because the real payoff of revenge isn't the chaos you leave behind. It's the clarity you gain, the patterns you break, and the lessons everyone finally learns. By the end of that month, Marissa's life stabilized. Slowly. Tedious repayments. Careful transparency. The car? Sold. The condo? Refinanced. Her pride? Shattered. But rebuilt with honesty. And my parents? They finally saw me as more than the responsible one who gets by. It was quiet, unspoken. A truce forged not in words, but in accountability. That night, I sat on my balcony, city lights blinking in the distance. The desert air smelled like sage and possibility. I realized something profound. I hadn't left my family. I had stepped outside the illusion that trapped us all. And in doing so, I'd given them a chance. A harsh, uncomfortable chance, but a chance nonetheless. Revenge wasn't about payback anymore. It was about restoring balance. I poured a glass of wine, and as I watched the sky darken, I whispered to myself, freedom feels better than any red bow ever could. The night I truly won wasn't the night I left. It wasn't when the emails went out. It was the night I realized they couldn't manipulate me anymore. Months had passed since the chaos of that Christmas and the fallout that followed. Life in Phoenix had settled into something I never thought I'd achieve. Peace with power, control over my own narrative, and clarity that came from action rather than passivity. Marissa had adapted. Slowly, painfully. I saw it in the way she answered calls, in the way she handled clients, in the way she avoided lies. She wasn't perfect and she still struggled, but she was learning accountability. My parents? They had changed too, but differently. Not out of insight alone, they had seen the consequences. Actions taught faster than words. One night, I received a text from my mom. Dinner. Just us. No pressure. I hesitated. Then I replied,
Fine.
but the rules don't change. At the restaurant, I sat between them, a neutral observer now. We didn't talk about the car, the money, or the humiliation. We talked about life, about responsibilities, and yes, about trust. It was awkward, painful, but honest. Mom reached for my hand across the table. You were right, she admitted quietly. We forgot to see the full picture. We thought providing was enough. But you taught us something better. Dad nodded, eyes misty. And maybe we didn't understand what it meant to raise someone who could stand up for themselves. You did that. And you didn't even know how strong you were until now. I smiled softly. It wasn't just me. It was the choice to act, not just react. That's what mattered. When I left the restaurant, I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Closure. Not revenge, not hatred, not triumph over others, but peace. I had drawn the line, and now everyone on the other side of it had learned their lessons. The final act of the story came quietly. Marissa called me one evening. Her voice was soft, tentative. Lena, she said, I want to apologize. Not just for taking advantage of Mom and Dad, but for underestimating you. For thinking you'd always just let things slide. I let her words linger. They were sincere, carefully measured, something I could respect. You've changed, I said finally. But more importantly, you're changing. That's enough for now. We didn't argue. We didn't fight. We didn't try to one-up each other. Just acknowledgement, the kind that carries far more weight than anger or social media posts ever could. Later, alone in my apartment, I reflected. The $11 from Christmas morning, the SUV, the gold bow, the Instagram posts, they weren't just symbols of privilege and imbalance. They were the spark that ignited every choice I made afterward. I realized revenge is a strange thing. It isn't always dramatic. It isn't always fast. Sometimes, it's slow justice delivered through patience, clarity, and letting reality run its course. And sometimes, it's not about punishing others. It's about liberating yourself. I glanced at the coin purse still on my desk. It felt heavy now, not with cash, but with significance. It represented years of being overlooked, underestimated, and dismissed. And yet, I had transformed it into power, into lessons learned, into freedom. I poured another glass of wine, settled into my chair, and let myself smile genuinely. Freedom tastes better than any red bow ever could. Before this story fades into memory, there's one thing I want to leave with you. Never underestimate your own power to act. The moments that feel small, insignificant, or painful, those are often the moments that define everything. And for anyone watching, wondering how to handle betrayal, imbalance, or injustice in their own life, here's my truth. You don't need to destroy anyone to take control of your own story. Sometimes, the quietest, most strategic moves are the most devastating and the most rewarding. Hold on, before we wrap up, I want to know something. What would you have done if you were in my shoes that Christmas night? Would you have walked away or stayed? Let me know in the comments. I read every single one. If you enjoyed this story and want to see more of the real-life revenge stories and lessons in control, like this video, share it with someone who loves suspense, and subscribe to the channel's Silent Revenge Lab. Trust me, you don't want to miss what's coming next, because the truth has a way of catching up, and when it does, it's better to be prepared. I leaned back, glass in hand, feeling the desert wind brush against my balcony. It wasn't about winning. It wasn't about punishing. It was about surviving, growing, and letting everyone else face the consequences of their choices. And that finally felt like freedom.